Ooh, that's really dark. Should be interesting. Well, forgive me in advance because this is the first time I've ever live streamed on YouTube. So that's pretty cool. I don't know how this works. Hope everybody can hear me. What is this all about? Sorry, I'm clicking around because this is my first YouTube live stream and I'm not necessarily familiar with how everything works. I don't know if I have to open up the chat. But whatever the case, welcome. I can't see who's here. That's unusual. But I used to always do these readings on Instagram back in over the past several years. It started with reading Marcel Proust on Instagram Live every Friday while I was reading it for the first time, and it just kind of morphed into me reading somewhat regularly on here. It's not a new thing for me to be doing these things. It's just a new thing for me to be doing them on YouTube. So if anybody new that I'm unfamiliar with is watching this, my name is Chris Robinson. I just like books. I read a lot of books, and I like reading them aloud. Not all the time, but it's really it's just a pleasant. It's become like a really pleasant pastime for me. I don't know. I read a lot of short fiction. I love short fiction. I have like something of a passion for it. I write it myself, and yeah, I really enjoy it. So I have an attachment to that. So that's what I'm going to be reading tonight, primarily, just an assortment of some of my favorite stories. This is oh god, it's not mirrored like it is on Instagram. That's cool. Just some selections from such luminaries as Samuel Beckett, Laszlo Krasznahorkai, Richard Brautigan, Christine Schutt. It's kind of hard to see. Lydia Davis. There'll be some Diane Williams, almost certainly. Her stuff is very short, and I can always throw it in. But yeah, that's what we do around here. This would ordinarily be happening on a Friday, but I wasn't able to make it happen until Saturday this week. Subsequent weeks, for the most part, they'll be on Fridays fairly regularly. I don't know. Otherwise, currently reading the new Laszlo Krasznahorkai. It's pretty fantastic so far. I'm only about 150 pages in, but damn, I love Krasznahorkai. I've read everything of his that's been Englished so far, except for the nonfiction Destruction and Sorrow Beneath the Heavens and the Manhattan Project. Yeah, otherwise, fuck it, let's go. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on YouTube. There might be a little bit of swearing. I'll promise to keep it to a minimum. The first one I'm going to be reading tonight is from Revenge of the Lawn by Richard Brautigan. It is the title story in Revenge of the Lawn by Richard Brautigan. It's called Revenge of the Lawn. My grandmother, in her own way, shines like a beacon down the stormy American past. She was a bootlegger in a little county up in the state of Washington. She was also a handsome woman, close to 6 feet tall, who carried 190 pounds in the grand operatic manner of the early 1900s. And her specialty was bourbon, a little raw but a welcomed refreshment in those Volstead Act days. She, of course, was no female Al Capone, but her bootlegging feats were the cornucopia of legend in her neck of the woods, as they say. She had the county in her pocket for years. The sheriff used to call her up every morning and give her the weather report and tell her how the chickens were laying. I can imagine her talking to the sheriff. Well, Sheriff, I hope your mother gets better soon. I had a cold and a bad sore throat last week myself. I've still got the sniffles. Tell her hello for me and to drop by the next time she's down this way. And if you want that case, you can pick it up, or I can have it sent over to you as soon as Jack gets back with the car. No, I don't know if I'm going to the firemen's ball this year, but you know that my heart is with the firemen. If you don't see me there tonight, you tell the boys that. No, I'll try to get it there, but I'm still not fully recovered from my cold. It kind of climbs on me in the evening. My grandmother lived in a 3-story house that was old even in those days. There was a pear tree in the front yard, which was heavily eroded by rain from years of not having any lawn. The picket fence that once enclosed the lawn was gone, too, and people just drove their cars right up to the porch. It was the winter the front yard was a mud hole, and in the summer it was hard as a rock. Jack used to curse the front yard as if it were a living thing. He was the man who lived with my grandmother for 30 years. He was not my grandfather, but an Italian who came down the road one day selling lots in Florida. He was selling a vision of eternal oranges and sunshine door to door in a land where people ate apples and it rained a lot. Jack stopped at my grandmother's house to sell her a lot just a stone's throw from downtown Miami, and he was delivering her whiskey a week later. He stayed for 30 years and Florida went on without him. Jack hated the front yard because he thought it was against him. There had been a beautiful lawn there when Jack came along, but he let it wander off into nothing. He refused to water it or take care of it in any way. Now the ground was so hard that it gave his car flat tires in the summer. The yard was always finding a nail to put in one of his tires, or the car was always sinking out of sight in the winter when the rains came on. The lawn had belonged to my grandfather, who lived out the end of his life in an insane asylum. It had been his pride and joy and was said to be the place where his powers came from. My grandfather was a minor Washington mystic who in 1911 prophesied the exact date when World War I would start, June 28th, 1914. But it had been too much for him. He never got to enjoy the fruit of his labors because they had to put him away in 1913, and he spent 17 years in the state insane asylum believing he was a child and it was actually May 3rd, 1872. He believed that he was 6 years old and it was a cloudy day about to rain and his mother was baking a chocolate cake. It stayed May 3rd, 1872 for my grandfather until he died in 1930. It took 17 years for that chocolate cake to be baked. There was a photograph of my grandfather. I look a great deal like him. The only difference being that I am over 6 feet tall, and he was not quite 5 feet tall. He had a dark idea that being so short, so close to the earth, and his lawn would help to prophesy the exact date when World War I would start. It was a shame that the war started without him. If only he could have held back his childhood for another year, avoided that chocolate cake, all of his dreams would have come true. There were always 2 large dents in my grandmother's house that had never been repaired, and one of them came about this way. In the autumn, the pears would get ripe on the tree in the front yard, and the pears would fall on the ground and rot, and bees would gather by the hundreds to swarm on them. The bees somewhere along the line had picked up the habit of stinging Jack 2 or 3 times a year. They would sting him in the most ingenious ways. Once a bee got in his wallet and he went down to the store to buy some food for dinner, not knowing the mischief that he carried in his pocket. He took out his wallet to pay for the food. "That will be 72 cents, the grocer said. "Ah," Jack replied, looking down to see a bee busy stinging him on the little finger. The first large dent in the house was brought about by still another bee landing on Jack's cigar as he was driving the car into the front yard that peary autumn the stock market crashed. The bee ran down the cigar. Jack could only stare at it cross-eyed in terror, and stung him on the upper lip. His reaction to this was to drive the car immediately into the house. That front yard had quite a history after Jack let the lawn go to hell. One day in 1932, Jack was off running an errand or delivering something for my grandmother. She wanted to dump the old mash and get a new batch going. Because Jack was gone, she decided to do it herself. Grandmother put on a pair of railroad overalls that she used for working around the still and filled a wheelbarrow with mash and dumped it out in the front yard. She had a flock of snow-white geese that roamed outside the house and nested in the garage that had not been used to park the car since the time Jack had come along selling futures in Florida. Jack had some kind of idea that it was all wrong for a car to have a house. I think it was something that he had learned in the old country. The answer was in Italian because that was the only language Jack used when he talked about the garage. Everything else he used English, but it was only Italian for the garage. After grandmother had dumped the mash on the ground near the pear tree, she went back to the still down in the basement, and the geese all gathered around the mash and started talking it over. I guess they came to a mutually agreeable decision because they all started eating the mash. As they ate the mash, their eyes got brighter and brighter, and their voices, in appreciation of the mash, got louder and louder. After a while, one of the geese stuck his head in the mash and forgot to take it out. Another one of the geese cackled madly and tried to stand on one leg and give a W.C. Fields imitation of a stork. He maintained that position for about a minute before he fell on his tail feathers. My grandmother found them all lying around the mash in the positions that they had fallen. They looked as if they had been machine-gunned. From the height of her operatic splendor, she thought they were all dead. She responded to this by plucking all their feathers and piling their bald bodies in the wheelbarrow and wheeling them down to the basement. She had to make 5 trips to accommodate them. She stacked them like cordwood near the still and waited for Jack to return and dispose of them in a way that would provide a goose for dinner and a small profit by selling the rest of the flock in town. She went upstairs to take a nap after finishing with the still. It was about an hour later that the geese woke up. They had devastating hangovers. They had all kind of gathered themselves uselessly to their feet when suddenly one of the geese noticed that he did not have any feathers. He informed the other geese of their condition too. They were all in despair. They paraded out of the basement in a forlorn and wobbly gang. They were all standing in a cluster near the pear tree when Jack drove into the front yard. The memory of the time he had been stung on the mouth by that bee must have come back to his mind when he saw the defeathered geese standing there, because suddenly, like a madman, he tore out the cigar he had stuck in his mouth and threw it away from him as hard as he could. This caused his hand to travel through the windshield, a feat that cost him 32 stitches. The geese stood by, staring on like some helpless, primitive American advertisement for aspirin under the pear tree as Jack drove his car into the house for the second and last time in the 20th century. The first time I remember anything in life occurred in my grandmother's front yard. The year was either 1936 or 1937. I remember a man, probably Jack, cutting down the pear tree and soaking it with kerosene. It looked strange, even for a first memory of life, to watch a man pour gallons and gallons of kerosene all over a tree lying stretched out 30 feet or so on the ground, and then to set fire to it while the fruit was still green on the branches. That was Revenge of the Lawn by Richard Brautigan. I chose that to read first because that story and that collection are largely responsible for me getting into short fiction in a big way. I'm very grateful to have found that book in my teens, and it has sent me down countless avenues, and I can trace most everything I've gotten into has kind of resulted from that book, Revenge of the Lawn. Next, I'm going to save that one closer to the end. Let's go to somebody lesser known. Not that Richard Brautigan is in any way overly known, but I want to go to somebody who gets almost no attention at all, and I've never really understood why. This collection is called Out of Work. Wow, I'm sorry, that is really hard to read. Out of Work by Greg Mulcahy. He's an author based in Minnesota. He's still writing today. And just no attention at all. This was his debut collection, and it was published on Knopf. Big time stuff. And he just, I don't know. The critics seem to like it. He does get published still. He shows up in Noon in most of the issues and all kinds of things. But it just never really took off for him, and it's a bummer because his stories happen to be like some of my favorites. But the one I'm going to read now, it's real short. It's shorter than that one anyway, the other one, and it's depressing and funny, and I don't know. What else do you need to know? This is from Out of Work by Greg Mulcahy. This story is the final story in the collection. It's called Edge City. It was not a matter of liking it, of choice, of this or that, of I want. More and more, he felt there was no choice, especially in the morning. He felt this. Aside from the normal problems, the everyday problems like everyone else's everyday problems, he had some internal things, some personal problems, or really, character flaws. His character was flawed, no doubt about it. He felt bad about it, but what could he do? Character flaw. Last day, he was eating his lunch at his desk, looking out at the stretch of tar and gravel-covered roof, the distant trees, the sky. A plastic bag flew onto the roof, a heavy tan bag, woven plastic. Took a second to recognize it as a sandbag. The first time was the worst. He had lost plenty of jobs, but that first time really knocked him on his ass. He'd send out 2-3 resumes a week for these jobs, great jobs that paid more than he had ever made and provided offices and health insurance and company cars. And he would sit in the house drinking malt liquor, believing he was about to land the big one. On the last day, when he was looking out the window, his supervisor told him it was all over. He knew that. So what? He said. Don't get smart, the supervisor said. Smart? You aren't Jack, the supervisor said. You aren't anything. You aren't fuck all. He stood up. I aren't what? He needed any job, no matter how bad, to get a better job. It was like a test, a demonstration of how much shit one was willing to eat. He went to janitorial, security, telemarketing firms. He knew how to live cheap. You get 2 uniforms, the boss said. Okay. That's out of your first check. Okay. You break the baton, you pay for it. Okay. You want a big flashlight? That's your expense. And get some black shoes. He was hoping for a place with closed circuit TV in the lobby. Sit there and watch the screen. They gave him a medical arts building downtown that dated from the turn of the century, linoleum hallways lined with painted doors with frosted windows. The building stank of germicide and dental plaster. He had to walk all night, punch little wall-mounted machines to prove he made the rounds. Seemed like he had been in this building when he was a child. The place had gone down since then. The remaining professionals were ancient or alcoholic or addicted, their shabby clients worse. Who, he wondered, would want teeth fabricated here? Mostly vacant storefronts on the street level, but still a few going concerns. Gutted-looking liquor store, barber shop, the House of Love. House of Love in a storefront that had been a shoe repair and tobacco shop. A couple of female mannequins decked out in stockings and leather in the display window with magazines, games, videos at their feet. The rest of the interior blocked with painted particle board. A sign advertising adult novelties. He looked at the picture on a cassette box. He wondered what kind of business the place did days. It was always closed when he came on. He had forgotten to change the timing belt at the recommended mileage, and it went out. 8,000 after the recommendation. Forgot, his wife said. Jesus. She was right. It was one of those mental things. What could he do but fix the car? Put it on the plastic. Getting to be spring, his wife needed new clothes for spring. She got some, she got the clothes, and he had the car fixed. A brand new timing belt. Best not to give it a thought. Special deal, one time only. He could get a quilted nylon jacket with the security company's patch and an American flag on it for $35. Supplementary wear with the uniform. Order at work. Some of the other guys, supervisors mostly, had the jacket. The jacket looked pretty good. He turned his time card in at the main office every other Tuesday afternoon. Ran into a guy there, a kid really. The kid had a little scooter like a moped with a for sale sign on it. What are you going to do next? His wife said. Read wrestling magazines? This will save me a fortune in gas, he said. It's not safe. It's fine. I hate it, she said. It's not like I'm asking you to write it. You look like a clown, she said. This isn't my dream come true, he said, but we have to downscale. We're still richer than the Chinese, he said. The Filipinos, the Indians. Hell, the Indians would kill to be in our shoes. He should worry about looking stupid? He was just trying to somehow survive. None of this is my fault, he said. He was not sure if this was true. He pulled up to the curb, parked the bike, glanced at the House of Love. One of the stockinged and gartered mannequins was holding a pair of handcuffs. He did not have handcuffs, not part of his equipment, not, in fact, allowed. He caught his reflection in the window, the thick body in the quilted nylon on the tiny moped. character flaw. He always wanted to fly in a helicopter. That was from Out of Work by Greg Mulcahy. That story was called Edge City. I am really sorry for the light situation here. I don't know what is happening. It's a little better. I'm trying to eliminate the glare, is what I'm trying to do. I'm sorry. I was not prepared for the orientation on this thing. That's pretty glare free. Let's go with that. That's cool. All right, what's next? See what I mean? It's kind of funny. It's kind of miserable. It's pretty lifelike. I had that happen in my car one time where the timing belt went out and just obliterated the engine basically. That was really fun. This is many moons ago. I'd like to keep it there. Oh, what next? What next? What next? Do like a real shorty. Okay, so Christine Schutt. This is called Pure Hollywood. This is an incredibly underrated story collection. I believe on Goodreads it still is under a 3. I believe it's in the high 2s now, average rating. I don't understand why, really. I think it must have something to do with the title and the pink, and thinking like it's going to be like some lighthearted story collection about Hollywood or something. I don't know. I really don't fucking know. Be that as it may, Christine Schutt is one of my favorite living writers, period, but particularly of short fiction. She's just awesome. Someday I would like to read the entirety of the first story in this book, the title story, Pure Hollywood, but I'll save that for another day. The one I'm going to read now is very, 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 very short. It is 2 pages in this book, which has reasonably large font, nicely spaced. So if you printed this in like any other format, it might be a page. But it's one of my like very, 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 very favorite stories, period, the end. I don't really like the term flash fiction, but you could call it that, I guess, if you wanted to. But this one is called The Dot Sisters. In the windy city, they sway on a bridge and let the wind get under their dresses. Claire and Julia, happy. Let them be happy. They have suffered. Their father abandoned them years ago. Their mother rages past, shrill ghost. Swipe her away. Stay with the girls on the bridge in the high wind in the summer of 1970. How cheerful they appear against the passing scene in navy, gray, or khaki. The sisters wear matching dot dresses, green ground for Claire, for Julia, brown. The river beneath them is tan, not brown, and the sky overhead is true blue. Probably they have been happy together before, but Julia is often melancholy, and Claire is pessimistic, so it has been a long time since, or never. Never? Don't be ridiculous, Julia says. They are simply happier than they have been in a long, long time. They've sold the house. The estate is settled. They think they will not come back. They should pack tonight. Take the train tomorrow. The palmetto sounds breezy. Travel to the Carolinas to a tall white inn, tippy as a cake, with balconies, shutters, netting, and flutter, where crystal chandeliers bejewel every room, and on the bedside table a swan carafe of water. On the pillow, chocolates and foil. Let them be comforted. Please, let them sleep. Not in every dream, unpacked, undressed, shamed. Enough with the nakedness and shit and sick pets, sick in corners. Powerful few pages there. That's just a beautiful story. That one never loses it for me. I just, God, I go back to that one so often, so often. While we're here, I'll read the other one that I go back to very often too. It's another short one. This one is, it's not as short. This one is one, two, three. This one's 3 pages. Um, again, from the highly underrated and undeservedly so Pure Hollywood by Christine Schutt. This story is called Where You Live When You Need Me. I'm sorry for the camera quality. Don't watch me do this. Just listen to it. Out of nowhere, Ella, a mound with no known out. Yeah, let me butcher this beautiful opening. Let me start over. Out of nowhere, Ella, a mound with no known address, a swaying mystery, swollen hands, swollen feet. Did she sleep in the playground? Ella simply appeared. No phone, but a tiny notepad, a tiny pencil. Where you live, when you need me. Like the Mr. Softy sound, Ella drew children to her under the shawl of her arms. Ella was a house in the park for an afternoon that often faded into later. No trouble, any time, where you live, when you need me. She wasn't a bargain, but she was worth every penny. Besides, Anne Byrne, who first used Ella, said the woman spent her money on treats for the children. How else to explain the matchbook trucks I found in my son's pockets? Uh, Ella, I like it. They're happy. Me too, but you need the money. That was the summer when little parts of little bodies turned up in KFC buckets and dumpsters in the city. The summer of 1984, weeks of record heat and brown air. Colonies of plague, ugly rats partied under park benches, hauling off big fines, pretzels and buns, acting bold. Ella watched the children by the playground sprinklers, then picnicked in the park. Wow. Then picnicked in the park when the sun was down and the grass blue, the rats less visible. I saw Ella sometimes in the North Meadow, a squat teepee circled by the Burn boys chasing the little Fleming girl with squirt guns, getting sopped. For a while, we fretted over losing Ella to the Flemings. Everyone shared Ella. She had work every day if she wanted. No, Ella said, I don't leave. Then agreed to 2 weeks in July with the Flemings in Nantucket, even though by her own admission she couldn't swim. Ella brought out something in the mothers I knew, brought out something in me, so that we, all of us recklessly employed someone about whom we knew next to nothing in a summer when the streets at night looked greasy and baby body parts were being found. No one who hired Ella that summer ever knew with any certainty her last name, let alone her address. Even the efficient Anne Byrne was unsure. Ella asked to be paid in cash. Anne Byrne probably did know Ella's last name, but she was gutting an apartment on Fifth, taking out walls, putting in new windows, and she was living in the apartment at the same time with 2 boys, 5 and 2ish, which, when I think about it now, was clearly unsafe. The barricades were useless. The boys ducked under. I see her younger son now toddling toward an open window. What a summer. A third and last reported bucket was found downtown, off Bowery. As with the other bodies, the head was gone. Oddly, no report of a missing baby was ever made in any borough. Maybe the children were from out of state? I came home later than planned one night and found Ella sitting in the summer dark, which was not so dark I couldn't see her, but I wondered why not a light was on. She sat monumentally boulder-like, but alive, hands as big as soup bowls stacked in her lap. Something else. At the end of the season, I stood on a slimy ledge of a waterfall with my younger son when he stepped out and I grabbed his bib overalls just in time. What were we standing on? Why were we there? We were in the Berkshires renting a house on a small muddy lake is all I remember. That and the sound of water and its tinkly music over and over. I believed in God back then, too, and nobody knows where he comes from. Oh, God. Chills. Chills. Every time. Every time. I don't know. I just love her prose so much. She's just unbelievable on a sentence level. The rhythms of it. It's so musical. It's just gorgeous. Even when it's really troubling thematically, it's always gorgeous. It's always a treat. Yeah, that's Christine Scott. Oh, no. What do we do? What do we do? We perk it back up. I think we do. Let's see, read something less depressing, maybe. What do I have that's less depressing? I guess we could Diane Williams. Maybe we should Diane Williams. Well, Diane Williams. She'll bring the life back to the party. She always does. She's reliable. Let's see. Sorry. Oh, cool thing about this edition. It's hard to see, but it's signed. It's pretty cool. I have a couple signed. Diane Williams. She rules. She just rules and rules and rules so hard. I'll read a funny one before I read a less funny one. All of Diane Williams' stuff is very, very short. Very funny in a lot of cases, very disturbing, especially in her early work. There are some real doozies in here, interspersed with some of the funniest stuff I've read. And I'm looking for it now. Let me just go to the table of contents and stop fucking wasting everybody's time. Where is To Die? There it is. 79. This is a really short one. I think it's really funny anyway. Let me try to get a nice shot of this. This is Diane Williams's first story collection. I believe it was published in 1990. It's called This is About the Body, the Mind, the Soul, the World, Time, and Fate. It's a mouthful. Her second story collection has still one of my favorite book titles of all time. Some Sexual Success Stories and Other Stories in Which God May Choose to Appear. Really funny. Anyway, this is a really short one. This is called To Die. I undressed myself. I wanted sex. I wanted sex. I wanted sex. I wanted sex. I climbed into bed with my wife. She wanted sex with me. She always wants sex with me. When I discharged myself this time into her, I was feeling myself banging as high up into her as I have ever gotten myself up into her. I had just done the same with another woman who always wants sex with me, too. There is another woman that I do the same with. There is another woman. There is another woman. There are 5 women who always want sex with me. They are always ready. It does not matter when or what or where, but they are ready. I have a great deal of money, which I have earned. I have physical beauty for a man. I have intelligence. I have work to do, which I love to do, but women are what I prefer to anything. To lie down with them, the turning to touch the woman and knowing I will be received for sex as soon as I wish to be welcome. I have been at it like this way, for years. It does not matter when I will die. I have had everything I have ever wanted. I should die now. There should be a killing at my house. There should be much, so much more for me, which I am not able to conceive of. That was To Die by Diane Williams. I should say this like the standalone book is out of print. I mean, it went out of print a million years ago, but most of these stories are collected in an enormous the collected stories of Diane Williams. It eliminates some stories. I think it eliminates um, this one that is just devastating to me. It's like one of the best stories in the book. For me, it's called Cloud. Um, maybe I read Cloud. Oh, it's a harsh one though. I don't know that I want to read Cloud tonight. It would be trigger warning, sexual violence. I mean, it's incredibly written, but like, dude, the ending. I might cry if I read that one. I don't really want to read that one. Let's not do that one. We'll read a different. This one. There's similar impact in the ending, but I won't cry on this one. I promise you. We'll save Cloud for another day. This is called All American. The woman who is me, why pretend otherwise, wants to love a man she cannot have. She thinks that, oh, let me just start this over. The woman who is me, why pretend otherwise, wants to love a man she cannot have. She thinks that is what she should do. She should love a man like that. He is inappropriate for some reason. He is married. When she thinks of the man, she thinks force. And then whoever has the man already is her enemy, which is the man's wife. The woman makes sure the man falls in love with her. She has fatal charm. She can force herself to have it. Then she tells the man she cannot love him in return. She says, "You are in the camp with the enemy." Of course, the woman knew the man was sleeping with the enemy before she ever tried to love him, and the word enemy gives joy, the same as I get when the wrong kind of person calls me darling, as when my brother says okay to me, goodbye, darling, before he hangs up the phone after we have just made some kind of pact, which is what we should do, because I have to force myself to love the ones I am supposed to love, and then I have to force myself on the ones I am not supposed to love. I got my first real glimpse of this kind of thing when I was still a girl trying to force myself on my sister. I didn't know what I was doing until it was obvious. We were in the back seat of the family car. The car had just been pulled into the garage. The others got out, but we didn't. I thought I was not done with something. Something was not undone yet. Something like that. And I was trying to kiss my sister, and I was trying to hug my sister, and she must have thought it was inappropriate. Like, what did I think? I was a man and she was a woman? I must have been getting rough because she was getting hysterical. I remember I was surprised. I remember knowing then that I was applying force and was getting away with it. Ugh. God, she fucking rules. Okay, read one more. This one, I don't even know what to think of this one, but it puts me in a better mood than All American. This is also by Diane Williams. I'll move on to other things after this one, I promise. I love her work so much. This one is called Orgasms. I swear I did not have anything of hers except for my dark idea of her, which I have been keeping to myself until now. Even better than catching my own husband in the act with her, I opened my mouth, but I left her probably forever before I made a statement. She was presiding with her face flattened by some shadow. Her shoulders and her arms, and all across the front of her also, were gray, which was what made the idea of her dark. I saw the top half of her blotted out, more than half of what was behind her, nothing more, except some of her black hair curled away up into the way hair will, the way hers did. What of it? If you care, it was like going by her like I was this big fish swallowing a big, big fish whole. But because I am bigger, and what of it? She kept on having orgasms with my husband. The orgasms, where do they go? Crawling up into, as if they could have, up into, dying to get in, ribbed and rosy. I saw seashells where the color mouths should be, or the nipples of breasts, or the color for the seam up inside between the legs, or for I don't care where, since they are pretty, is why I collect them. Those Orgasms by Diane Williams. Since they are pretty is why I collect them. We'll no doubt read some more from her in subsequent weeks. That was a fun little trio to read. What time we got here? Okay, we got 13 minutes left. Okay, shit. I forgot to read Lydia Davis. Darn, I guess I'm gonna have to read some Lydia Davis. Woe is me. Oh, that one is so sad. I'll read that one another day. She wrote this story called Grammar Problems that is just one of my all-time favorite stories, period. But it's so heartbreaking. So I'm going to wuss out and probably not read that one. I'm going to read this one, though. I think it's just a very fun and strange fun and strange story. This is from her 2001 story collection, Samuel Johnson is Indignant. This one just cracks me up, so I have to read it. It's called A Mown Lawn. Like I just mowed the lawn that's been mown, a freshly mown lawn. A mown lawn. She hated a mown lawn. Maybe that was because mow was the reverse of wom, the beginning of the name of what she was, a woman. A mown lawn had a sad sound to it, like a long moan. From her, a mown lawn made a long moan. Lawn had some of the letters of man, though the reverse of man would be nam, a bad war, a raw war. Lawn also contained the letters of law. In fact, lawn was a contraction of law man. Certainly a law man could and did mow a lawn. Law and order could be seen as starting from lawn order, valued by so many Americans. More lawn could be made using a lawn mower. A lawn mower did make more lawn. More lawn was a contraction of more lawmen. Did more lawn in America make more lawmen in America? Did more lawn make more nom? More mown lawn made more long mown from her, or a lawn mourn. So often, she said, Americans wanted more mown lawn. all of America might be one long mown lawn. A lawn not mown grows long, she said. Better a long lawn. Better a long lawn and a mole. Let the lawmen have the mown lawn, she said. Or the moron, the lawn moron. That was A Mown Lawn by Lydia Davis. Holy hell. That one is so much fun to read aloud. All right, guys, we're going to get real weird with it now. So, this story is very challenging to read aloud, even though the sentences are very short. And every so often, I like to try to read it aloud on here because I'm a fucking maniac. Or I should say I was doing it on Instagram. But from time to time, one must throw caution to the wind and attempt to read Samuel Beckett's weirdest story. And that's really saying something. I have to take a water or drink some water before I start it. Apologies. I don't know. If you're familiar with Beckett, I hope people are familiar with Beckett because he's awesome. But his short stories seem to be less talked about, less noticed than like his plays. And I mean, understandable, he was a great playwright, and his novel is understandable, he was a great novelist. But his short fiction is so strange. And I love it. I just don't really know why I love it. And this one, I know why I love it. It's because of the sound, and it's so strange and so jarring. And I've been reading it for, my God, I'm 36 now. I've been reading this for, I don't know, 18 years. Oh, wow, that's sad. 17 years, 16 years, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I still don't really know what the hell is happening in this story. I have many theories. Many people have theories. But ultimately, it's still a big mystery. And yeah, I don't know. Without further ado, this is Ping, as in like ping pong. Ping by Samuel Beckett. Get ready. All known, all white, bare white body fixed 1 yard, legs joined like sewn. Light heat, white floor, 1 square yard, never seen. White walls, 1 yard by 2, white ceiling, 1 square yard, never seen. Bare white body fixed, only the eyes, only just. Traces, blurs, light, gray, almost white on white. Hands hanging, palms front, white feet, heels together, right angle. Light heat, white planes, shining white, bare white body fixed, ping, fixed elsewhere. Traces, blurs, signs, no meaning, light gray, almost white. Bare white body fixed white on white, invisible. Only the eyes, only just light blue, almost white. Head hot, eyes, light blue, almost white, silence within. Brief murmurs, only just, almost never, all known. Traces, blurs, signs, no meaning, light gray, almost white. Legs joined like sewn, heels together, right angle. Traces alone, unover, given black, light gray, almost white on white. Light heat, white walls shining, white 1 yard by 2. Bare white body fixed 1 yard, ping fixed elsewhere. Traces, blurs, signs, no meaning, light gray, almost white. White feet, toes joined like sewn heels together, right angle, invisible. Eyes alone, unover, given blue light, blue, almost white. Murmur, only, just, almost, never, 1 second, perhaps not alone. Given rose, only just bare white body fixed 1 yard, white on white, invisible. all white, all known, murmurs only just, almost never always the same, all known, light heat, hands hanging, palms front white on white, invisible, bare white body fixed, peeing fixed elsewhere, only the eyes, only just light blue, almost white, fixed front, peeing murmur, only just, almost never, 1 second, perhaps a way out, head hot, eyes light blue, almost white, fixed front, ping, murmur, silence, ping, eyes holes light blue, almost white mouth, white seam like sewn, invisible, ping, murmur, perhaps a nature, 1 second, almost never that much memory, almost never. White walls, each its trace, gray blur signs, no meaning, light gray, almost white, light heat, all known, all white planes meeting, invisible, ping, murmur, only just, almost never, 1 second, perhaps a meaning, that much memory, almost never. White feet, toes joined like sewn, heels together, right angle ping, elsewhere no sound, hands hanging, palms, front legs joined like sewn, head hot, eyes holes, light blue, almost white, fixed front, silence within, ping, elsewhere, always there, but that known not. Eyes holes, light blue, alone, unover, given blue light, blue, almost white, only color, fixed front. All white, all known, white plains, shining white, ping, murmur, only just, almost never, 1 second, light time, that much memory, almost never, bare white body fixed 1 yard, ping, fixed elsewhere, white on white, invisible heart, breath, no sound, only the eyes given blue light, blue, almost white, fixed front, only color, alone, unover, planes meeting, invisible, only one, shining, white, infinite, but that known not, nose, ears, white holes, mouth, white seam like sewn, invisible, peeing murmurs, only just, almost never, 1 second, always the same, all known, given rows, only just, bare white body fixed 1 yard, 9 invisible, all known without within. Peeing perhaps a nature, 1 second with image, same time, a little less blue and white in the wind, white ceiling, shining white, 1 square yard, never seen, peeing perhaps way out there, 1 second, peeing, silence. Traces alone, unover, given black gray blurs, signs, no meaning, light gray, almost white, always the same. Peeing perhaps not alone, 1 second with image, always the same time, a little less, that much memory, almost never, ping, silence. Given rose, only just nails fallen white over, long hair fallen white, invisible over, white scars invisible, same white as flesh torn of old given rose, only just, ping, image, only just, almost never, 1 second, light time, blue and white in the wind, head hot, nose, ears, white holes, mouth, white seam like sewn, invisible, over, only the eyes given blue fixed front light blue almost white, only color alone unover. Light white heat plains shining white, one only shining white infinite, but that known not. Peeing a nature only just, almost never, 1 second with image, same time, a little less blue and white in the wind. Traces blurs, light gray eyes holes, light blue, almost white, fixed front, ping. A meaning only just, almost never, ping, silence. Bare white 1 yard fixed, ping, elsewhere, or fixed elsewhere, no sound, legs joined like sewn heels together, right angles, hands hanging, palms front, head hot, eyes holes light blue, almost white, fixed about front, silence within, ping elsewhere, always there, but that known not, ping perhaps not alone, 1 second with image, same time, a little less dim, eye black and white, half closed, long lashes imploring that much memory, almost never. A far flash of time, all white, all over, all of old ping, flash white walls, shining white, no trace, eyes, holes, light blue, almost white, last color, ping, white, over. Ping, fixed, last, elsewhere, legs joined like sewn heels together, right angle, hands hanging, palms front, head hot, eyes white, invisible, fixed front, over. Given rows, only just 1 yard, invisible, bare white, all known without within, over. White ceiling, never seen, ping of old, just almost never, 1 second, light, time, white floor, never seen, ping of old, perhaps there. Ping of old, only just perhaps a meaning of nature. 1 second, almost never blue and white in the wind, that much memory, henceforth never. White plains, no trace, shining white, one, only shining, white, infinite, but that known not. Light heat, all known, all white heart, breath, no sound. Head hot eyes, white fixed front, old ping, last murmur 1 second, perhaps not alone. Eye, unlustrous, black and white, half closed, long lashes imploring, ping, silence, ping, over. Fuck me. It's just one of the hardest stories to read, straight up. At least for me, man. I don't know. If you can read that story easily, you're my hero. Let's see. Where is it? Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm going to finish tonight with a very, very brief story by Laszlo Krasznahorkai. Just one of the greatest living authors, for sure. This is from his collection, The World Goes On. This is the last story in there. Oh, you're very welcome, Patricia. Thank you. I don't know. I may be persuaded to stick around and read a few more. But I do want to squeeze this one in because I really, really like it very much. And especially on the heels of the rest of this particular collection. You get to this one and it's just like, man, I don't know. This is the mic drop story for sure. This is called I Don't Need Anything From Here. I would leave everything here. The valleys, the hills, the paths, and the jaybirds from the gardens. I would leave here the peacocks and the priests, heaven and earth, spring and fall. I would leave here the exit routes, the evenings in the kitchen, the last amorous gaze, and all of the city-bound directions that make you shudder. I would leave here the thick twilight falling upon the land, gravity, hope, enchantment, and tranquility. I would leave here those beloved and those close to me, everything that touched me, everything that shocked me, everything that fascinated and uplifted me. I would leave here the noble, the benevolent, the pleasant, and the demonically beautiful. I would leave here the budding sprout, every birth and existence. I would leave here incantation, enigma, distances, the intoxication of inexhaustible eternities. For here I would leave this earth and these stars, because I would take nothing with me, because I've looked into what's coming, and I don't need anything from here. Just like a really haunting way to end any book, but man, I love that story collection. It doesn't get talked about a lot relative to his other works. I mean, or it's like overshadowed by them. And in some ways, I understand that because his other works are so goddamn brilliant. But yeah, I don't know. If you've not read Laszlo Krasznahorkai, I highly recommend him. He can be formally challenging, but it's really, really rewarding stuff. Just go back and start at the beginning with Schutt Tango and kind of go from there. Yeah, it's great. And what a body of work, so prolific and so many, I don't know, so many bangers. I don't know, whatever the fuck the kids say anymore. I maybe don't want to leave it on like a super completely depressing note. Maybe I don't want to leave it on a super depressing note. Maybe I want to leave it on a nicer note, something that makes me laugh. We'll do another Diane Williams. This is from that same first collection of hers with the extremely long title. This is about the body, the mind, the soul, the world, time, and fate by Diane Williams. But this story just cracks me up. I have no other reason for reading it. It's beautifully written, as everything she does is, but this one just very funny. It's called Egg. She had never allowed any egg of hers to get into such a condition, looking unlike itself and bulging, which was why the egg had all her attention from where it was in the depth of the sink, and from the depth of where it had been all dark yellow in the bowl, which had not been very far down inside the bowl, for there was no depth of anything inside the bowl, no particular depths of anything in either of her kitchen sinks either. When she walked off from the sinks, thinking of the egg, how unlike itself, she heard a yell, which was noise produced by standing water, which was falling suddenly down deeply into the pipes below the sinks. Variously, this yell was a choke to her, a slap, or the end of a life, so that she stopped when she heard the yell with her back to the sinks. She had the impression of a preamble. This is the beginning of something. She went and got another bad egg and gave it to the dog to eat out of the bowl, so that the bowl was scoured and banged about. The dog, she thinks, gets everything. She was thinking later, walking the dog. He gets it, but pisses it and craps it away daily, everything. And yet everyone shows the dog all of their love. Even she loves, and she loves, and she loves the dog. The dog goes along down the street, and the people say to her, "What a nice dog," and "That's a nice looking dog you've got there." The dog takes her farther down the street than she intends to go, where then she is murdered. The murderer loves, and he loves, the woman's dog for the rest of the dog's life. The dog loves the murderer in return. The love that they share is perfect. It is not a love that would stoop to being sexual. I don't know, man. That one, you get like a whole story, and then this is the beginning of something, and it goes down this other road where the dog leads her down the street and she gets murdered. The murderer takes the dog and loves the dog until he dies. That's just great. I don't care who you are. That's great literature. Anyway, y'all, I've been at this for like an hour now. My voice is getting a little tired. I've run out of water. I need to remedy that situation. But I really appreciate anybody who popped in and saw even just a little bit of this. I don't know how the sound quality is, but I hope that it's halfway decent. And if not, we'll try to make it better for next time, and we'll keep doing these. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you all for being here. This was live read number 1, hopefully the first of many, and I'll see you all around. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.